Okay.
Hello. Welcome to When the Light Goes Out. My name is Kendall Hudson.
And I'm Brianna.
And we are so excited to start this podcast with you guys.
Woo!
Claps. Just a little quick interjection about myself. First to begin, I guess, well, first of all, we're both from Michigan.
Go Michigan.
No, fuck
I'm just
Michigan.
kidding.
No.
Yeah. Literally.
So I went to Grand Valley State University in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Multimedia journalism with a minor in French. So kind of a nice little background to have, I guess, to just become a podcaster all of a sudden. But I knew that this podcast is something that we really wanted to do for a long time. And after a long time, I'm like, let's do it. Let's just get this shit going. And I think it's been a couple weeks now. We've been working really hard to get this thing off the ground. So, yeah.
Here we are.
Yes.
I went to Wayne State University in Detroit, and I majored in business management. When I'm not working on this podcast, I'm also a manager at a well-known clothing store. It's just kind of fun and kind of fresh. But yeah, that's about it for me.
So cute. Oh, you totally shared your business. What I do for work is I'm a digital media editor, and that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, probably for the best.
And I think the other thing we'll just mention real quick is that we're both Scorpios, just for the sake of knowing, but we're just gonna go past that too.
Yeah, relax. We probably lost all of our followers.
We just lost half our followers saying that.
All of the listeners.
Fine, no worries.
Okay, stop the Scorpio hate. That's all I'm saying.
Honestly, yeah, guys. I feel like every time I tell someone I'm a Scorpio, they're like,
hey y'all, there's two different types of Scorpios though. I know we said we were gonna brush over this, but no. Scorpio justice. There are two types of Scorpios, and we are not the crazy ones, I swear.
That's really true. I feel like we're chill for the most part. Another thing too is everyone that is a Scorpio either love other Scorpios or they completely hate other Scorpios.
Oh, I love my Scorpios.
Oh yeah, we love each other. We've been friends for the longest time.
Since
we met
2016, right?
Yeah.
Got our first jobs.
Yeah. Oh my god, we met at Route 21. I remember Brie had walked in before her shift, before she started, and she was just getting to know everyone. And I was like, oh shit, that bitch is pretty as fuck. She's gonna be my best friend. And then a friendship had sparked. So
here we are. Years later.
Before we dive into the story that I had deeply researched, I'm going to try to not go too fast past it so everyone doesn't get confused. But also, I really hope maybe we don't have to cut this into two parts, but we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, so I guess let's dive into the case. So, before I say the name of what this case is, I will just give you a little, let's set the scene, okay? It's 1886 Chicago. There was a big port of travel where people often traveled via boat and train. Around this time, anarchy ran through the streets of Chicago after a massive massacre had just taken place called the Haymarket Affair, where many people lost their lives, and moreover, Chicago's population was just vastly growing with more than 1 million people. While this is all taking place on the corner of 63rd Street and Wallace, a man buys a plot of land to begin the construction of his new building, which would later become a crime scene straight from hell. Do you think you know this, Bria?
Oh yeah, by the way, guys, I don't know the case.
Okay, I told her I wouldn't get into it. I was like, no, you can't look at it. I'm reading off of her iPad while we're recording on my computer, and I'm like, you can't look at it even though it's your stuff.
No, literally, I do know this case though.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this will later be known to become the murder castle of Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, or as most recognize him by H.H. Holmes, America's first documented serial killer. Dun, dun, dun.
What a great guy.
I know, right?
He's kind of a genius, though. An evil genius, but
Oh, wait till he died, man. He did some shit, guys.
He did. No kidding.
Well, H.H. Holmes was born Herbert Webster Mudgett. On May 16th, 1861. He was a Taurus.
Okay, Taurus.
In Gilmanton, New Hampshire, to parents Levi Horton Mudgett and Theo Tate Page Price. Now, here's the thing, guys. Holmes had a pretty privileged and affluent childhood. And he was very intelligent as a young man, but he had shown a lot of interest in medicine early on. But even though his life had been, well off financially, his devoted Methodist parents often were very abusive. Now, I'm not saying in any way that his parents religious beliefs were good or bad, but they used their beliefs in a very abusive way, which can definitely mentally and physically change a child. Holmes' father was an alcoholic, and that just kind of adds the fuel to the fire. If it wasn't bad enough to build on that bad behavior, Holmes was bullied a lot as a kid, and being bullied actually is what led to him encountering his first interaction with death. Bullies had dragged young Holmes into an office of the town doctor and forced him to confront a mounted skeleton. Now, I really hope that doctor wasn't even there at that time, because, like, why would anyone let that happen? But
is it just me, though, or do most serial killers just seem like they come from really bad childhoods?
It seems like it. I think that a lot of serial killers, just from a lot of the forensic files and things like that I've ever watched, always are like...
I have a really bad childhood.
I have a really bad childhood.
Brain developing when they're young.
Yeah.
Being exposed to that type of stuff so young, really messes them up, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think being that his dad was so... abusive, I think that was pretty relevant, and his mom also kind of let it happen, which I don't think, unfortunately, that becomes the case with most serial killers. So, among the trauma, he did graduate high school at the early age of 16, as soon after changed his name to Herbert Webster Mudgett to Henry Howard Holmes, what later be dubbed H.H. Holmes. And we will get back to how he kind of started really using his name later on, but I had found, according to the Crime Museum, which is in Washington, D.C., I think we should go and check that out.
We should go there,
That sounds really fun. I've always wanted to go. It said that at an early age, he was fascinated with skeletons and soon became obsessed with death, which should give you a little insight to what we're dealing with here. Being that Holmes was brought about by death so early on, he started showing an interest in bodies.
Yikes.
I know, right? Some speculate that that his first kill was at age 18 in and around 1879.
That's really young.
Yeah, I know. By a woman by the name of Mary Mudgett. Yes. If you remember his birth name, that's his own cousin that was found dead in a creek under mysterious circumstances.
I didn't know that. His first possible kill was his cousin?
And it's alleged, so I don't want to say, but we're pretty sure, obviously, that,
That's scary.
You'll learn more about him to know that he was a fucked up man, so...
Yeah, no kidding.
In 1882, Holmes had married his first wife, Clara. Now, one thing I wanted to mention that I even put in my notes is that there was a lot of sources that said that Clara...
Is it Clara?
Clara? I think
maybe
it's Clara. Him and Clara had a baby together, but there wasn't a lot of information on it, so I'm just going to kind of leave it out because I don't want to just throw that into the circle if it's not part of it. Alleged baby, yeah. He attended school at Glementon Academy, where he also later taught at 20 years old, but also had a lot of bad encounters with the school while teaching there. The school just never really felt that he was a right fit for teaching, and the academy eventually just wasn't having it with him. He started sending angry messages to the headmaster of the school, reflecting on how smart he was, and I just feel like that's so arrogant of him.
That is really arrogant.
I'm sorry, if you're not a good teacher,
he really said,
grow from it, or
I don't need you, you need me.
Literally, and I'm like, bro, chill out.
Okay, Mr. Holmes.
Okay, Mr. Holmes. First, Holmes had tried University of Vermont, and he didn't really love the vibes there, so he moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where he attended.
Not Michigan.
Yes, I know, right? Yes, he attended University of Michigan in 1884.
Wow. University of Michigan's that old.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
It just offered more of what he wanted in a medical school. Okay. While attending U of M, Holmes focused on chemistry and anatomy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. There would be times where Holmes just did some really weird shit in front of other students and professors, such as the time, and this, again, allegedly, from a couple sources, he had a project where he would be able to take home a mummified baby, and he would get all excited about it.
Dissect it?
Dissect it, yeah.
No way.
Right?
You're telling me that he allegedly had his own baby and he was taking a mummified baby home to
dissect it.
No.
Oh my God.
If I was Clara, I'd be like,
girl, yes.
Divorce.
Yeah, I know. He had access to laboratories, so after lab hours, he would go back and steal cadavers from campus labs. And he would also start breaking into nearby local cemeteries and steal corpses. And so here's when the moniker kind of starts to show its ugly head. So it's kind of like his thing, where he kind of decides to take these bodies.
Like dead bodies, yeah.
Sell them.
It's like where he gets started.
Yeah.
It was really grave robbing.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, how the hell did no one see this?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's 1800s. What can you really do?
I guess.
So Holmes would take these corpses, burn and disfigure them, and then take out false life insurance policies on the bodies.
Stop.
And list them and he would list his name as a beneficiary. So in return, he would get paid for reporting the bodies and putting in these claims.
How would that even work? Because weren't they already dead? Like
they're already dead, but he would like pretty much take them out. He'd take out the bodies. He would burn these bodies so they were so badly burned.
You couldn't like tell.
Yeah, you couldn't tell. So I know. It's
so then he'd like say they were other people?
Yeah.
What?
It gives me goosecam. I mean goosebumps. Oh my God. It gives me goosebumps. And keep in mind here, this guy is fairly intelligent. So from the jump, he was really good at manipulating insurance companies into thinking that, these schemes were actually real. And spoiler, a lot of the people started going missing from here on out. So brace yourselves.
Oh my God. I'm ready.
So while living in Michigan and while Holmes was going to school, his wife Clara, had moved into a boarding house, but their marriage had instantly began to fall apart. And a quick warning, there is an abusive description here, so be careful. Sources say Clara would be seen walking around with black eyes. Not like black eyes, but like she got beaten.
Yeah.
And there was once an instance at school when he had forcibly demanded a hairdresser marry him. I know.
That's random.
I know. I'm like, dude, chill out. Which almost got him expelled. And although we seem to have this bright young man, it just seemed like he really didn't apply himself to his academics and barely graduated because, he's busy, so-called, with his side business. And what is also kind of sad is the fact that he didn't even care much about projecting abuse on others, knowing that other people were around and that other people would find out because, no one really thought anything about it, I guess. Unfortunately, in the 1800s around this time, it's just kind of something that a lot of people just didn't bat an eye about.
Yeah.
And we think about how his parents were also abusive and how his father was, an alcoholic and things like that. So, I don't want to throw false information out there, but it seems to me like this is kind of thing that would kind of make a serial killer kill. And so we're going to fast forward. Shortly after barely passing his exams and graduating a year later, in 1885, Holmes would move to Chicago. Now, after moving to Chicago to find work, he pretty much left Cara and the alleged baby behind, which is terrible, to start his new life.
You really said, fuck that baby.
I know. I'm like, how could you just leave
Alleged baby.
But I think that I'm just like, even if he didn't or did have a baby, you're still married to this woman. At least figure out your shit and then decide what you want to do next.
Like, get a divorce first or just up and left.
Yeah.
Like, Lord.
Holmes had lied on his resumes as well and acted as if he was already working in a pharmaceutical field for some time, even though he really hadn't just done anything and just graduated. He had then went under the alias of H.H. Holmes.
Oh.
So we finally know where he, started using his name, and he's so infamously known for. Holmes had ended up getting a pharmacist position for a small pharmaceutical company, and shortly after getting his position, the owner of the pharmacy has strangely passed away. I know, and it was actually a couple, so there was a man and woman. The man had mysteriously passed away, and so he had convinced this poor woman to let him take over the shop, and then guess what happens?
She also mysteriously
she mysteriously passes away.
Oh,
well,
I wonder who that could be.
I know. Well,
what caused that?
According to Holmes, as told, he says that she moved to California. So, okay, Holmes, this old lady is just going to move to California.
She just packs her bags and just like, goodbye.
Yeah, and
moving to California.
Never to be seen again.
Yeah, no one actually verified that?
No.
Just... She went to California and everyone was like sick. Okay.
Yeah, that's what happened.
All right.
And I guess she wrote off the, pharmacy over in his name. So it's like, it's still. The pharmacy eventually became his. A very eerie part during his ownership of the pharmacy, colleges would be looking for real skeletons to use in their research. And so he would offer these skeletons to donate to schools, and they would receive these skeletons from Holmes and just wouldn't ask questions, which he doesn't stop at that later on. It keeps going. So each bone that he would sell would be about $200, which I looked up on, Inflation. God, thank you. You look up on the inflation. I looked up on the inflation calculator, and it's about $6,000 today. So that
for each piece.
Yeah, that is
for a whole human body. That's like a few grand.
Yeah,
like tens of thousands of dollars.
He's cashing out. I'm like,
yeah, for real.
Now, with owning the pharmacy and alongside selling these skeletons, that helped Holmes save money. He would eventually save enough to, buy the plot of land across the street and begin construction of the infamous murder castle. Just a little, information on how this castle was structured. The castle was 3 stories and received at the time the name the castle from the neighborhood itself because of how big it was. During the construction period, Holmes already had the idea of how the place would be set for his victims, and so he would consistently hire and fire workers to keep anyone that may become a little sus to keep the knowledge of his plans at a distance. Interesting, right? That's like smart, but like also,
it's still sus in itself, though.
Yeah,
like
right?
Hiring, like, as soon as you start becoming suspicious, he's, like, fired.
So, yeah. So, like, the minute he would, like, build a stairway, he would fire you, and then he would get someone else to finish the job. So, like, he would be kind of...
This is, like, the, American Horror Story Hotel.
Yes, yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so true. Oh my god. I wonder if that's based off of this.
It is.
Oh, is it?
Oh
my god.
Yeah.
Shit,
it's not the whole season itself, but there is a part where Holmes is featured in it. Evan Peters actually played him.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and it showed like that's why the hotel had so many random mysterious rooms and stuff, because it was like the murder castle. Was the hotel.
Evan Peters is doing everything these days.
I know, right? That new movie that's coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, we just talked about the Dahmer. I think limited series. Yeah, I definitely going to watch that.
Me too. We're going to watch that tomorrow.
I'm excited for it.
Me too.
So the castle was about 3 stories, like I had said, and received the name the castle. During the construction period, I said how he had hire and fire workers and keep everyone at a distance. In 1891, the murder castle had finally finished its construction, and he had wasted no time placing ads in papers seeking assistance for his building, and would also place ads that would pose him as this wealthy businessman looking for a wife to wed.
He really put himself in the newspaper to find a wife. Imagine if people did that nowadays.
It's like the Tinder of newspapers. I love it.
Single woman looking for rich husband.
Honestly, I should do that right now.
Honestly, for you,
I'm a needed man. Is anyone looking? I'm looking for me.
He's single, people.
All right. So now, keep in mind, this filthy pig is still married to Clara. So while he's building this new life, this man is over here finding new women to wed and have as mistresses. Not totally sure what happened to Clara, but it's said that at a point, and their alleged child continued their life elsewhere, and Holmes just ended up marrying 2 other women. 2 other women.
What a player.
And I'll kind of explain more about these women later on, but one was Myrta Belknap, who he married in 1887, several years before the castle was even built, and then Georgiana Yolk in 1894. So as fucked up as Holmes was, he was very good at scheming and deceiving, as we can already tell. He became close to a lot of the women he would meet and make them feel important. The trust with these women would make them feel, just great. And so he would literally, trick these women into taking on insurance policies and putting them in his name to about, I want to say it was about $10,000, which would equal up to $300,000 today. And these women would never be seen again.
This man and insurance policies.
I know.
Oh my God.
One thing I learned from another case that I was listening to, I think on another podcast, was that at this time, I think they would have literally insurance vending machines. So you would literally take out an insurance policy and you would just have your insurance with you. It was kind of weird how it worked back then, but...
Yeah, it's like too easy.
Jeez, yeah, way too easy.
He was getting all these insurance policies for people.
And every employee, hotel guest, or sorry, not hotel guest, but I guess every guest and fiance, wife of his would also be required to take out an insurance policy.
Every hotel guest had to take a life?
So basically, if you came in and you're trying to check in or something, you would need to have an insurance policy.
Imagine trying to check in to like Best Western and they're like, sorry, you need to take out an insurance policy to stay with us.
And it's like, I don't even know, because again, it's the 1800s, so I don't know how big insurance policies really were back then, but I can really just acknowledge that I don't think it was that well known. Like,
no, I mean, dang, at that point, I'd rather just sleep in my car. I feel like it's so much work, to take out a whole insurance policy.
No thanks. I'm gonna check in downtown at the Western.
Yeah. He's like, go use the vending machine and go grab an insurance policy. Okay.
And so the murder castle was designed with sharp angled hallways that led to dead ends. Holmes would build this to confuse and throw off guests. Peepholes perfectly placed to see into the rooms. Walls were also built with asbestos-lined walls, which muffles noise. So basically, if you're being attacked, there would be hardly any noise coming through these walls, which just gives me goosebumps to think about. And he would also have a walk-in steel vault that would trap and suffocate his victims, and gas chambers as well, disguised as rooms.
Cute.
So yeah, while you're over here getting ready for bed, this man is over here also, down the hallway in his office, releasing fumes into the room. And when he finally get these guests at a vulnerable state, these poor people would be thrown into hidden chutes that would lead to a hidden basement where shit goes down. But we will talk about that more in a sec. The first floor of the castle contained many shopping stores.
Nice.
I know. Honestly, I'd be in there.
I'd be in there for the shopping.
Like, here, hi. Is there Macy's in here?
Yeah.
The upper level of the building also contained Holmes's office with more than 100 other additional rooms that he used as living quarters. So this place is literally having everything built in it. I feel like a lot of people just had everything at their disposal, no reason to leave, which also kind of...
everything was kind of there.
Yeah, also gives me goosebumps because I'm like, yeesh.
Trapped you, literally.
Yeah, I know. And so let's just talk about some of the victims here. One of the first victims that we know that had lived in a building was a tenant of the building named Dr. Russell. There had reportedly been a controversy between the two that seemed to be over rent and missing payments that Russell owed to Holmes. And while Dr. Russell had been turned around during this interaction, Holmes literally took a chair, like a heavy chair, to the back of Dr. Russell. Dr. Russell had begged for help, but soon died, making this Holmes's first murder in the castle.
Wow.
The next victim, I couldn't really find the name for. I looked everywhere I could, but we know that this death was due to a criminal operation. We know that this victim was a man, but this victim was still left unidentifiable to this day because of how badly dismembered and burnt his body was, which is
sad.
Yeah, so sad. In 1890, a woman by the name of Julia Connor had become Holmes's employee/mistress, living in the castle with her daughter Pearl. And when she had got pregnant, who I assumed would be by Holmes, and that's not necessarily for certain, but I'm assuming it was Holmes.
Wait, so Pearl is probably Holmes, or she got pregnant again?
She got pregnant again.
Oh.
So while she had Pearl, that was like her daughter,
okay.
But she had ended up meeting Holmes and got pregnant.
Okay.
She had demanded that Holmes marry her, and Holmes agreed if he could perform an abortion on her in his basement.
Yeah. So nice.
God. So
what a man.
I know. And so soon after, Joel and Pearl were never seen again.
No.
But yet a week later, he sold a well-polished bones to the Hahnemann Medical College for $200. Interesting.
Yeah.
In 1892, another mistress and private secretary of Holmes named, I want to say this right, is it Emmeline?
Emmeline, probably, yeah. Seagrand?
Emmeline Seagrand was also sent into a vault where she was told to retrieve some documents, and Behind it, she was sealed in. She suffocated to death, and weeks later, University of Chicago gets a female skeleton. How about that? And then 1 year later, again, Holmes finds a new secretary/mistress by the name of Minnie Williams.
Kind of like that name.
That's a cute name. Who this time was a beneficiary of an estate in Texas for over $48,000.
Yeah. Holmes probably liked that shit.
He ate that shit up.
Yeah, he did.
Her and her sister will later be killed after signing over the estate to Holmes.
Oh my god, how did nobody notice this?
I know.
It's the same exact
This
way.
man is really, really good about hiding shit.
Yeah, he is.
I'm
It's
like,
the same exact way for each victim.
I like wrote these notes and I'm getting creeped out by them.
Yeah.
And the way that Holmes rids off his bodies is truly horrendous. So forewarning, if you guys are not really good with a lot of, gore.
Yeah, it's about to get graphic, guys.
Yeah, just skip ahead. So in this basement, Holmes would melt the flesh tissue off the bone in a pit of quicklime. He'd then bring the corpse over to a dissection table where he would strip any remaining flesh off the bone. And if there would still be anything left, he would then either burn the body in a high heated furnace or he would place the bodies in a pit of acid. I also had found some information that I thought was interesting that I'll just kind of mention real quick because I guess some people see similarities. According to this film that I had watched called The History on the History Channel, it's also on Hulu if you want to watch it. It's called American Ripper. The documentary was filmed in 2017, and it focuses on the great-great-grandson of H.H. Holmes and why he believes that his great-great-grandfather may have been tied to the first documented London serial killer, who we all may know by Jack the Ripper. But we'll talk a little bit about conspiracies afterwards and how they might be connected. But it's a really nice docuseries that I suggest watching just to watch if you can. And in it, they discuss 1893, Holmes struck out when the World's Columbian Exposition had come to Chicago. It was also called the World's Fair, and I kind of just use that because it's easier to say. But this was a very big event that went on for months and months, and thousands of tourists and travelers would be looking for a place to stay. Around the same time, Holmes had also met an accomplice to help him out with the schemes. This guy was named Benjamin... God, I'm going to say it wrong. Benjamin
Pitzel?
Pitzel? Hold on, I'm going to look it up. Okay, we looked it up. It's Pitzel. So Benjamin Pitzel was his accomplice. And now a little background on Pitzel. Ben Pitzel arrived in Chicago in 1889. He was failing at a lot of the jobs he had been hired into. Same. Eventually, he continued working random jobs the next several years prior to meeting Holmes. And then when he soon had realized that he wasn't getting anywhere with the jobs he started accumulating a criminal record of petty larceny and forgery to support his wife, Carrie, and their 5 children. Now, his children were named Desi, Alice, Nellie, Howard, and their infant son, Wharton.
What a name.
Wharton?
That's a terrible name.
Wharton. Sounds like Wart. Ew.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
real.
I'm not making fun of his son. Oh, my God. So you don't have to necessarily remember the names, but just know that the kids play a crucial part to the story later on. Holmes soon became very close with the family. He would even visit the fair and bring some of the Pitzel children with him to prey on elderly women who flaunted their wealth, making sure he invited them back to the castle. His castle was only a mile away, so it wasn't very hard for them to even, say no to it. Yes to it. And Holmes eventually also found a second wife at this time by the name of Georgiana, who I had earlier mentioned. And she actually lived out her life. So,
good for Georgiana.
Good part of this story, at least she lives.
I wonder what made her so
I know. Well, what's weird too is that he had 3 wives and they all lived. So I don't even understand, how he...
All the mistresses died?
Yeah.
No, because he killed the one. Oh, they weren't married yet.
They're mistresses, not wives.
Because they never married. Yeah. She demanded they get married.
So maybe it was like a document kind of thing, or I don't know. Was he even close? I don't know. That's weird. But not after long, Holmes had started growing worried about Pitzel and that he would catch on to his murders. And so Pittisell knew that Holmes was up to something sinister at the castle, but he didn't know what he was really doing and that he literally was running a murder factory. The duo would begin traveling the country to continue their crimes away from the Chicago area. They would begin stealing horses in Texas and selling them in Missouri, while Holmes also continuously murdered victims nationally, but eventually police caught up to Holmes. Now, they didn't catch him for his killings, but after Holmes attempted to swindle another drugstore in St. Louis, they did catch up to him and put him away in prison for some time. But that didn't stop him. This man is just not stoppable, because you know what he did? He literally starts to develop a new scheme, this time with the help of his cellmate, Marion Hedgepath, in which Holmes would fake his own death, take out an insurance policy for $10,000, and share $500 with Marion.
Only $500?
I'm like, man, you better get some money out of that.
Yeah, for real, not even half and half. That's like, what, like 80 and 20%?
Yeah, not even.
Not even.
Like, Marion, come on,
like
man.
95,
you better get some money
5%?
out of this. I'm like,
somebody do the math. That's like nothing.
I'm like, Marion, you're in jail already. You might as well just do it. I mean, come on.
I know. If he was serving a life sentence, I guess.
Yeah.
What does he have to lose?
Whatever. Now, they set up this plan, but shortly after, his second wife, Georgiana, would help Holmes make bail. And so the plan fell through, which brought Holmes to just keep it moving. So once out, he had reconnected and replanned the same scheme with his accomplice, Benjamin Pittisell, in Philadelphia. But only this time, Holmes wouldn't fake his own death. He wanted Pittisell to be the one to fake his death. Pittisell was a little conscious about this plan, but he agreed, and he shared this plan with his wife, Carrie, who was very against it, but unfortunately, she can't really do a lot about it, and Pittisell would eventually be like, okay, let's do it. Little did he know, he wouldn't just be faking his own death. Holmes would chloroform Pittisell after getting him drunk, fake an explosion in the same house that they were in at the time, with various chemicals, and then take the money for his own. Poor Pittisell. I'm so sorry about that.
I mean, I guess Holmes needed a way to pay for this murder castle.
He needed that money. He needed that money.
He's rich at this
Which is crazy to me, because I'm like, the man's not even at his castle. He's like over here traveling the states. And I'm like, dude, your own accomplice? Like, that's a little messy. But this man really is just getting away with it all. But unfortunately, this is when things start to get a little weird. So Holmes shares the information with the Pittisell family that Ben may have been in a terrible accident, and says that someone will need to go and identify the body with him. But at the time, unfortunately, Carrie and a few of the kids came down with an illness and couldn't go to see if this was really their father/husband. Carrie had ended up sending her middle child, Alice, to identify the body with Holmes. After identifying the body, he arranges a hotel for Alice to stay in, and he goes back to the Pittisell home where he shares the news that Ben and Alice are both safe and they're staying in Indiana, but he's going to need to also take Nellie and Howard to also see their father. With a little hesitation, Carrie agrees, and Holmes begins to travel with the three children, using them as a part of his mischievous scams. And a vital part about this is that Alice continuously writes to her mother about the travels that they're on, but it's sad to find out that her mother is never receiving these notes. So while their travel continues back in Philadelphia, Holmes's little cellmate, if you remember Hedgepath, had seen an article in the paper about a fire that had taken place, and he sees that Holmes is attached to this. And he realizes that this is my cellmate that had never shared the money with me. So Holmes really fucked this one up. I'm like, no, you should have gave the man the money and went out and just went through with it.
Especially because it was only $500 out of your $10K. Like, you would have been fine.
He really just, he really fucked this one up. So Hedgepath goes to the police to share their little plan, and now police are on to Holmes and eventually track them down in Boston, Massachusetts with an outstanding warrant on committing fraud of mutual life insurance. Now, remember, police don't even know about all the deaths that he's been committing. They just know that he's wanted for all these scams. Police began to grow a little more suspicious of Holmes and decided to bring in the Pinkerton Detective Agency. Now, a little background on the Pinkerton Detective Agency. It's kind of a fun fact that they actually were the first to stop a attack on Abraham Lincoln. His first attack, he was attacked 2 times. Yeah, so the first attack they ever had on him, they stopped, and Pinkerton Pinkerton's also currently a detective agency, so they've been around for a long time.
No kidding.
Now the question stands, where the fuck is the children at?
Yeah, so Alice is with her dad.
With her dad. So now they're all like with him, quote unquote.
All the kids are with
As far as the mom knows, they're all with him. Well, we've got a hero of the story, Detective Frank Grier.
Finally, we have a hero.
We love a hero who recovers the notes that Alice had wrote to her mother, but unfortunately it was in Holmes's possession the whole time. So while she thought she was over here sending her mother notes, he was never actually sending them to her mother. He was just keeping them.
Yeah.
He was keeping them, yeah. Before I go any further, I just want to say that there are some children deaths, so if
Another content warning.
Yeah, another content warning real quick. The notes all had the location of where they traveled. So, after extensive tracking, Grier eventually located what was the charred and badly burnt body of a little boy in a stove in Indianapolis. I know, it's so sad. And later in Toronto, police dug up the remains of two little girls. Yeah.
He really killed the dad and his whole family.
God. Oh my, this poor woman. I can't really imagine how Kara was going through at this time. It just breaks my heart. Now, the news went public and people went berserk, of course, as they should, from the thought that someone would even do this to children. So in 1895, investigators further investigated his background and paid a little trip to a hotel on a warrant. Sorry, not even a hotel, the murder castle.
Oh, shit. This is where it all goes down.
I know. Okay. So investigators would then find in the basement the horrific scene of a sickening amount of badly decomposed, dismembered bodies. These bodies were found so badly decomposed that many weren't even able to be identified. Oh. I know. So now they found these terrifying bodies and they learn about this, background on Holmes, and the investigation just expands throughout Chicago, Toronto, and Indianapolis. Crazy enough, the police will only convict Holmes of the murders of the Pittisell children. And while in prison, Holmes began to write an autobiography called Holmes's Own Story, confessing to his murders. During his trial, he fired his attorneys and acted as his own attorney and denied actions of ever having killed these children, which, you little asshole. Really?
For real.
Well, first of all...
He's also such, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's just arrogant or
so arrogant.
Well, my thing is too, Ted Bundy did the same thing where he tried to be his own, attorney.
And they always end up fucking it up for themselves.
I'm like, what the fuck? Whatever. I'm so glad it didn't work out for him. And then during his trial, bad bitch Carrie Pittisell walks in the courtroom. She's dressed in all black, and she's clearly recounting the insurance fraud and the taking of her children across the country, leaving the courtroom in tears.
As they should be.
I know.
That's
and
so
I'm
sad.
And, this asshole is just sitting there, and he's kind of not even...
He's probably not fazed.
He's not even fazed by it. But what's crazy is that the minute that his wife walks in the room, Georgiana, he clearly just, vaguely just gives off this whimper, and he's just going.
As soon as his wife comes in, he's
acting remorseful. So I'm okay, whatever. In May 1896, Holmes was found guilty and hanged for his murders of the Pittisell children just 9 days before his 35th birthday, even though he had confessed to 28 murders. However, based on the evidence in the missing persons cases, it's believed that Holmes was responsible for over 200 murders during his lifetime.
He lived such a short life.
Just to do all of that.
So many people.
Just to do all of that.
200?
You know what just really grinds my gears about this? Is that before he was before he was hanged, he asked that he was buried in a slab of concrete so the grave robbers wouldn't dig up his corpse to study him, and they respected his wishes.
Oh!
I know.
He really didn't want what he did on other people to be done to him.
Yes. Yeah. Isn't that so ironic?
He's so shitty.
And it's the fact that whoever would respected this did it. What the fuck?
No, I wouldn't.
Leave his body out for display.
Yeah.
Fucking
They
bitch.
should have dissected and dismembered him too.
Fuck this guy. The castle was re-renovated later and made into an attraction/museum for the public to visit, as it was named Holmes's Horror Castle. But it burned down shortly before its grand opening, which is probably for the best.
You know, part of me wants to be like, I would be interested to see that, but I feel like that's very disrespectful to the victims, right?
Okay, so, like, it's weird, too, because a lot of people will, like, you know... I don't know. It's just a weird thought. If I was alive around this time, I'd definitely be a little curious, but it's something about that human emotion that really just, I guess...
It's just it was a place filled with so much just dark, like,
yeah, and you just...
sad. Like,
it's like you're curious, but that human mind is just like, I need to see it, but we know that it's just unfortunate. Yeah. So it's just the fact that they made this into attraction. It's just so sad, but...
It didn't need to be done in the first place.
No.
So, yeah, I agree. It probably is better that it burned down before the grand opening.
Yeah, somebody did that.
Do you know what year that was?
I'm actually not sure. I didn't really find a lot about it, but I could imagine that it wasn't too long after 1896, which is when he was hanged. So it was definitely, I want to say, at least early 1900s. So where the murder castle once stood is on the south side of Chicago and is now a parking lot for a postal service. And I can only imagine how angry those ghosts are. Oh God,
that is still so sad.
It's so sad, right?
These people got brutally murdered and dismembered, and now all it is a parking lot.
It's a parking lot, yeah. And you guys...
It's like covered.
Yeah, it's just covered. It's just all gone. So just a couple of conspiracies between Holmes and Jack the Ripper. Just because I knew that a lot of people are still skeptical about it. Yeah. I don't know for sure whether or not Holmes was Jack the Ripper, but there are some weird, you know...
Like the same... Like he could be the same person?
Okay. Yeah. So a couple things I guess are similar and different were that they were active around the same time, though H.H. Holmes often had its MO to trap people and dispose of them for the sake of getting money out of it. There are no findings that Holmes ever traveled overseas and killed people.
That's where Jack the Ripper was.
That's where Jack the Ripper was. So, you know, it's maybe possible, but we don't know. Jack the Ripper also terrorized London in the summer-fall of 1888. He killed 5 people and seemingly just disappeared without a trace. Jack the Ripper also didn't really have a specific MO, kind of like Holmes did. He was very random with his murders. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the people that were murdered were just women. Most of the time, they were just prostitutes. He would just, you know, leave them in the streets murdered. Just badly murdered, by the way. And one more thing is just that it's just weird that Holmes would engineer a murder factory only to travel to London to kill a handful of people. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would Holmes travel all the way to London and kill 5 people and then come back?
Yeah, like, I feel like Holmes and Jack the Ripper were probably 2 separate people. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I wish there was more on the timeline because... It just really doesn't make sense, like you said, that he would literally have this whole, like, murder castle set up in America and then randomly, like, travel to London, kill 5 prostitutes, and go home.
Yeah,
and he was very specific with his killings. Like, the Jack the Ripper was too messy. That wasn't him. Like,
I don't think it was either.
Holmes way.
And if you guys are, you know, maybe you have some conspiracy, feel free to let us know. I'm always, you know, curious about that kind of thing. Yeah, and I'm sure at some point we'll cover Jack the Ripper. He did a lot of shit, and the way he killed was just horrendous. So.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about him too.
Oh my God. Just a quote to leave us off on by H.H. Holmes, quote, "I was born with the devil in me. I cannot help the fact that I was a murderer no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing. I was born with the evil one standing as my sponsor beside the bed where I was ushered into the world, and he has been with me since."
That's chilling.
Ooh, that gives me chills. And that is the case of H.H. Holmes and his murder castle.
He was a really bad guy.
He was a fucked up guy. And the fact that he was like the first... quote unquote, on record, the first American serial killer is just even more crazy that he, you know, it's sad that he killed 200 people.
Yeah, and like to go back on the like bad childhood, like just because you had a bad childhood doesn't mean that you need to go and murder people. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh my God, there's so many people that like
who had bad childhood and didn't turn out to be murderers.
Yeah,
but that, like I said, that does seem to be a trend with serial killers. killers is like they had really bad childhood and it's just something in their brain like that's not
Just
wired correctly and they go out and kill people, but that's not everyone.
Let me just say, people, there are so many people out there that unfortunately go through a lot and they don't come out like this.
No.
It's just not a thing.
This is so much, and he did it all for money.
For money, yeah. Like, this man literally just took out insurance policies on everyone he would meet along the way.
Like, did he even get enjoyment out of killing, or did he only want to do it for the money?
I think it was just the money, but where did that lead him? It led him to death. Like,
yeah, literally led him to death.
Jesus Christ.
It's not a good
I need
man.
a drink.
Yeah, good thing you have your Jose
Let me get my Jose Cuervo out.
Oh my God. Yeah, so that wraps up the case on H.H. Holmes. Don't forget to follow us on our Instagram, when the light _ goes out. You can also follow us separately. Kendall's Instagram is going to be at This Is Kendall Hudson, and my Instagram is at Brianna Doyen. Thank you guys so much for listening today and tuning in. And
make sure to also, I'm not sure yet. I'm pretty sure we're going to be on Spotify. We're going to be on FSS feed, as well as Apple Podcasts. So wherever you're listening to us, just make sure to leave comments, like, subscribe, let us know how you feel about our first episode. We are excited to come out with our next episode next week.
Yeah, and let us know what other cases to cover.
Yeah, oh my God, send us all the cases. I forgot, I also made an Instagram I also made an email for our page. I'll post that in the show notes, so just make sure to,
Yeah, send us ideas there.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks, guys. Oh my gosh. We did it!